let's start with the question of the now. What is a DAO? What is that? I hear a lot about it, and want to make sure we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah, so decentralized autonomous organizations are a new way to coordinate. You can think of it as an LLC on a blockchain.
So you're sort of talking about being decentralized. It is, we're going to talk about this more in detail, but this is more peer-to-peer, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's about, it's imagine an organization that's owned by its members.
Yeah.
So the members, those that hold the unit of value, which could be a token or some other digital measurement, actually own the governance of the organization.
And so there's two things, obviously. One is the knowledge. And of course, knowledge is the new oil, right? Data, right? So that's the data, the knowledge, right? But then there's also a financial aspect to belonging to this particular DAO and sort of DAOs in general, right? So we're going to sort of break this down a little bit. Let's start initially with the value, because the value is the data or the knowledge, correct?
Yeah, the concept is that until today, we haven't been able to return the proper, you might say, incentive or recognize the proper ownership of knowledge. And if you think about in the Web 2 world, knowledge has been largely generated by advertising models. So platforms, or you might say it's been proprietary. And the challenge with proprietary knowledge is that it can be curated and of really good quality, but that curation takes time, effort, and overhead that makes it typically slow and expensive. And so we're just at a point now where traditional systems that are either slow and expensive or spoiled by advertising, meaning they're tainted and biased.
Yeah.
We've pushed our systems of knowledge to their limit.
So one thing that's been, I think the tech world and software in general was pretty resistant to this idea of open source knowledge initially. And then it's a little bit like trying to stop a tsunami with a surfboard, right? Eventually you can't, and you just have to go with it, and you have to figure out how to work within it so that you're not afraid of it, but you're benefiting from it. And I think what we're seeing now is this growth in sort of open source knowledge. And this ties into the DAO that you're creating, right? This is open source knowledge, but it's also sort of aggregated or contained and structured and organized in a way that it can be useful. So can you explain how open source knowledge plays into the DAO matrix that you're creating?
Yeah, so let's just take a time and a place of where we're at. Okay. And the word open source really is most, most related, I'd say, to the open source software. And open source software became super popular. If you look at servers today, 98% of them rely on Linux, which is an open source code. The reason why that was so successful was really the motivation of the people that created it. And if you think about their motivations throughout the past several decades, it's been that they want control. They're not going to pay for software that they themselves can create. In fact, they were frustrated by the speed of which the software was being created. They had to go out and develop it themselves rather than sit around and wait for a company. And that's where we are today with information. So proprietary sources of information are either too slow, or they're coming out in packages that we really don't find very tasteful, meaning that they're being driven by another agenda. And so people are frustrated. That same frustration, that same desire to go self-create knowledge and be a part of the knowledge creation community is really the moment that we're at right now. And for it, we do need new tools. We need new mechanisms. At Current, we've discovered throughout the years that there are some basic principles in creating what I would call market-ready knowledge, or knowledge that has some market value. And so that's we're leveraging a new era, new technologies to break some of those barriers that were impossible to do in a Web 2.0 world.